today, we are in a very esteemed company. Today, for the session, and for your interaction, we have Dr. Nitin Garg with us. I will give a quick introduction of him. Dr. Garg is a senior consultant neurosurgeon and minimally invasive spine surgeon at Bansal Hospital, Bhopal. After having worked at Nimhans, Bangalore in 2007, he joined BMHRC till 2014. He has performed more than 7,500 neurosurgical procedures. Students, बहुत बड़ा number है ये. In addition, he has numerous publications to his name. He is also founder of a patient support group for brain tumor patients called as the Brain Tumor Support Group, BTSG, and Awareness Foundation India. This is first such not-for-profit entity in a non-institutional setup which provides psychosocial support to brain tumor patients and their caregivers. So I welcome Dr. Garg on this panel today. Initially, I will be asking a few questions, which usually students would want to know, and then we will, talk about very specific questions from the audience, sir.
Okay.
So once again, I welcome you on the panel. Welcome you on the panel, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. We can hear you and we can see you well, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So the very basic and the first question, what was your motivation to, decide the career of medicine or, choosing MBBS as a field, sir? What was your basic motivation, sir?
Right. You see, whenever we choose some profession, what personality traits you have, I think they do count. And this I'm telling you now, after being in this field for 20-25 years. But I am sure the children who are hearing this, so for a doctor, basically you need two basic things. One is compassion towards your fellow human being, and the desire to relieve suffering of any person who is suffering from a medical condition. And a lot of experiences you come across when you are a small child and when you are adolescent, and then when you are trying to choose your career options, wherein these small influences do have an impact on your mind. But sometimes you're not sure about it, and this is where your elders also, your parents, grandparents help you. So for me, it was basically, although my father was an industrialist, he knew what I felt about others, and he only motivated me to take this profession. So I think compassion and desire to help others is the most important trait one should look at.
Important perspective. A lot of time there is a perception that it's all about money, but I think the reality is it's about caring for others. That is a very important message which you have given to the students, sir. Then while you decided about I'm sorry, sir. While we were discussing about MBBS, at what point of time in your career you decided ki maybe neurosurgery is the ultimate aim? When did you decide about considering neurosurgery or the field of neurosurgery?
Right. So see, I mean, once you start your MBBS, the first 2 years are more of studying. You don't really come into contact with patients, but it is through your third session, third MBBS, fourth MBBS, when you start your clinics. And that is where you are exposed to different specialties. And when I started my clinical rotation, I realized that surgery was for me. I mean, I wanted to become a surgeon. And the reason is I didn't want, I wanted to have an impact directly to the patient, because as a surgeon, you are going to do a surgical procedure, you are going to operate on a patient, and that is actually going to have an effect on the patient. You are going to cure him. So I realized that, yes, probably this is my passion. I need to intervene and provide relief to a patient. So this was the first step. And then as further I advanced, there was a very interesting incident during my pediatrics posting. And I did my graduation from GMC Nagpur. And there was a small boy, 8-year-old, who had a brain tumor. And my professor requested the father of that patient, and this I'm talking about way back, 96, that please take him to Mumbai, because at that point, Nagpur did not have very good facilities for neurosurgery. And then the professor went, and as happens, and this is something which the students should also realize, I came back and talked to the family, to the father, and I said, what are you doing? What are you planning? And he said, I'm going to take him home. And I was shocked. I mean, as a young doctor, aspiring doctor, you feel that a child can be treated, but I was shocked. And the reason he told that if I take him, he was a very poor person, that if I take him, my other two kids will die. So I mean, you see, a patient, a father had to choose between his one kid and other two kids because of the lack of facilities. So that somehow had an impact on me, that yes, there is a dearth of neurosurgeon, and that still exists today. And somehow being wanting to be a surgeon, and then additionally this event motivated me to become a neurosurgeon.
Yeah, that is very inspiring. Absolutely. So one thing, message for you students, that take your rotations very seriously. That's the best way you can
Yes.
learn medicine. Whatever theory you do. So I mean,
Yes.
and sir found his passion
I
while
mean,
he was doing rotation. So that is again, yeah.
yes. So Chirag,
Yes,
if
sir.
I
Please
can
add, sir.
just
Please add.
tell the students that you see what happens once you go into college. You come across a lot of different type of students and your seniors, and some say, look, this is not an important posting, or this is not an important subject. My suggestion to students is, you see, you are going to treat a human being, and human being will not come to you that I am going to be operated only for brain, or only for heart, or only for spine. So you should know the entire subjects, and our MBBS curriculum is a bit lengthy compared to other professions, precisely because of this, that you get time to understand these different subjects. So even if you are not interested, go, because you will learn something, and at some stage in your career, you will remember that case. Look, I had seen that case, my professor managed it this way. And believe me, these experiences, small experiences, build up yourself as a good medical professional.
So next question, of course, I mean, as a neurosurgeon, what are your daily routines, roles, and responsibilities? How do you manage, weekday, weekends? What kind of pressure, night duties? How does it work, sir?
So you see, I just finished an operation on a Saturday evening. So that's how a neurosurgeon is. To your first question, as a consultant, as a neurosurgeon, you see, you are basically dealing with neurosurgical cases. So it starts with a morning round. You take rounds and you evaluate and examine and manage the admitted patients whom you would have operated day, 2 days, 3 days, or a week before. And there are some admissions which happen overnight, so you have to evaluate them. And then, of course, you go to the operation theater and operate this particular case which we have posted. And then in the second half, you run your outpatient clinic. You see OPD patients, and a lot of patients come with various illnesses. You have to guide them. Some of them would be surgical, some of them are non-surgical. And then again in the evening, you take rounds. And so this is a very planned schedule. And apart from this, 24/7, any day, be it a Saturday, Sunday, or a working day, or a holiday, you are on call for emergencies. So you have to be ready. You have to be prepared mentally, in that frame of mind, that if you get a call, because you see 40% of the neurosurgical cases are actually emergency. Most common are head injuries and brain hemorrhages. So such patients do not give you time. You have to initiate the process, and within an hour of admission, you have to many times take these patients for surgical procedure. So apart from a routine schedule, you have to be prepared for such emergency procedures. So this is how it is. And apart from this, you try to take out some time for yourself and for your family. So it's a busy
Right, sir. So,
busy
student, one thing,
day.
yeah, absolutely. So one thing, students, this is very important, that whether you are in your medical school or, overall in your career, time management seems to be a very important factor, as sir has rightly pointed out. I mean, how do you manage your, surgeries, rounds, new patients, old patients? So definitely important. Sir, you've already given the source of inspiration, was your first case where you decided neurosurgery.
Right.
Other than that,
Right.
can you, share with us some experience of a memorable patient case which you have managed? And you've done so many surgeries, so few of them.
Yeah, that is tough. But you see, I'll just give you two examples. And the first was a young lady, 22-year-old, but she was already a disabled patient. She had a condition known as osteogenesis imperfecta. Now, this is a condition wherein it's a congenital condition, genetic disorder, wherein the bones become very brittle. and even a simple sitting with a slight jerk can cause fracture. So she was very short, she was very stunted, she had multiple fractures, multiple injuries, and she came to us at 2 o'clock early morning, and the irony was that that was her birthday. I mean, the friends had got together at her residence and they were cutting a cake, and somehow she just tripped from the stool and she sustained a head injury and a big clot in the brain. And by the time she came to us, she was in a very bad condition. She was unconscious. And looking at her overall condition, medical condition, past history, we were not very positive about the outcome. I mean, we thought that probably surgery would not save her. But here, this is where sometimes your clinical judgment tends to, I mean, you have to be open to the suggestions. The family wanted very strongly to go ahead with surgery, and they were willing to accept all the risks. And we went ahead with surgery. And to our surprise, she survived that surgery. She remained comatose for a month. She fought through all those ICUs, stay in the ICU for a month. And by the end of 1.5 months, she was conscious. She got discharged by 2 months. And now she's running a foundation for the disabled people, very active on social media. So this was one case which taught us that you never lose hope. Sometimes your clinical judgment would be right, but sometimes it may not be right. And therefore, you have to take the family always into picture, into account whenever you take a decision. And the other case was a patient, again a young patient, 20-year-old, who had a condition in the spine wherein he could not breathe himself, and he was on a very long-term ventilator, almost 6 months. And the family was tired, patient was tired, he's fully conscious, but he just cannot breathe. There's a condition, I don't know if students have read Ondine's curse. So this is a condition wherein when you go to sleep, you stop breathing. And this is because of the problem in the medulla oblongata. So this was it's a very rare condition, and we ourselves saw it for the first time. And when he's awake, he would breathe very well, and he asked us, requested us to relieve him of this problem. And this is where we put in a pacemaker for breathing. I mean, we have all heard that there is pacemaker for cardiac issues, but this was the first case, and it was the first case in our country wherein we put a pacemaker for breathing. There's a phrenic nerve in the neck. We stimulated the phrenic nerve, and it's now been almost 8 years. He's walking around, he's off ventilator, he has a pacemaker, and that pacemaker switches on whenever he goes to sleep, and whenever he wakes up, it gets switched off, and that's how he's able to carry on. So these are some of the remarkable and memorable conditions. In the second case, I just want to tell students that even if you are a consultant, or even if you reach a particular stage in medicine, your learning should not stop. So in this particular case, we got in touch with specialists from Japan, Australia, US, and unfortunately the particular equipment was not available, and we found out the alternate equipment. A lot of research had to be done for that, and successfully eventually we achieved that. So these two cases, I would say, taught me so many things, that you have to be always ready to accept families' thoughts and families' emotional needs, and maybe change your decision, and also try to go out of the way to help your patients. You just can't say that, no, I have no other option. There would be some option, but you have to work hard for it.
Very true. As they say, learning never stops, and medicine is a field where you are always practicing.
Yes.
So
yes,
absolutely, sir. How about your work-life balance and between your family, and how do you manage that part? In terms of personal life and professional life, how do you balance it, sir?
Yes, there is no balance in neurosurgery, in work-life balance. It's all work, 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 and maybe a little bit of life. This is the hard fact which has to be accepted, and that's because, as we discussed, our field is like that. As a neurosurgeon, you can get a head injury, you can get a brain hemorrhage, you can get a big brain tumor. Just now, as I'm talking to you, we just admitted one patient. She has a big tumor. She's very drowsy, and we're just getting her MRI done, and maybe we may have to take her in the night. So for those students who want to think this as a profession, it's a wonderful field. But yes, work takes up seat, because you see, there are lives depending on you, and you can't say, no, this is my work-life balance, this is my time to relax. No, that's not possible, because there's a life at stake. So you have to give that importance, and somewhere down the line, your family does understand that. They do understand that what you are doing is for someone's need, and you are lucky enough to be able to do it. I mean, very few of us in our life have this ability, and all of you must have seen for the last 6 months all big non-medical persons. Finally, even if whatever big person he is, it's the medical specialty which has stood forth and helped the humanity during this worst crisis. So for a neurosurgeon, yeah, work takes the upseat. You have to really sacrifice a lot. We have had situations wherein our holidays were curtailed because some patient got sick. Our conferences I could not attend. 31st December, 1st January, 15th August, nothing like that. But over the period of time, your family understands, and you also accept it. It's all in your mindset that, and you feel happy about it. That yes, whatever time you spend was for someone's benefit and someone's life saving. You see, neurosurgery actually has an immediate and a drastic impact on the patient and their family members. So you have a patient who comes who is head injury, who is comatose. You operate him immediately, and next 2-3 days he becomes conscious. He walks out of the hospital. I mean, there can be nothing so dramatic as such a thing. So it's a very good field, but yes, it's not for the faint-hearted. It's for someone who is willing to sacrifice, who is willing to be on his toes round the clock, and it gives a lot of peace and solace once your patients do fine.
Absolutely, that's the ultimate satisfaction. First of all, you need to have a passion to be in a field like a neurosurgery, and if you are in it, you have to give your 100%. There's no second doubt about it. Sir, in terms
No doubt.
of the demand of your specialty,
Right, sorry. You have to be 100%. You can't compromise on that as a neurosurgeon. And you have to be 100% 24/7. You have to be 100% 365 days a year. And you have to be 100% even when you are 20 years senior consultant or 25 years. Yeah, Chirag.
Yes, sir. Sir, my question was, how are the demand of your specialty, in India or abroad? What is the demand, sir?
Yes, so we have, if we compare with the Western statistics or the statistics of the developed countries, there is a huge shortfall of neurosurgeons. So there's no doubt that neurosurgeons are in great demand, and you can see this because you see simple cases of head injuries are they take 3 hours, 4 hours to shift these head injury patients to a center where neurosurgical facility is there. So there is a great demand, but I would also mention here that by the time these students are able to take up and come into the society as neurosurgeons, I think they would have to, the demand is more in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. The metropolitan areas are more or less now saturated. So you have to look at your own hometowns if you are from tier 2, tier 3 cities as the best option and best place to work, because as with most of the medical facilities in India, we are all skewed. I mean, most of our facilities are concentrated in big cities, and this will change. This will change because people are willing to invest in hospitals in smaller towns. They're willing to provide the facilities. By the way, neurosurgery is a very capital intensive field because it requires a lot of equipments which are very costly, like microscopes and endoscopes, C-arms, navigation. But then what we have seen in the last 5 to 7 years, that even in smaller cities, there are entrepreneurs, there are businessmen who are willing to put in the money and to get all the required equipments to provide good neurosurgical care. So I'm sure by the time these students who are going to enter the medical profession, they come out of as neurosurgeons, things would have changed, and there is a great demand. Now, coming to your second question about abroad. So you see, definitely neurosurgery is one of the top fields along with cardiac surgery in Western countries. I mean, I'm speaking here about about English speaking countries. So that's very important. But you see, if you become a neurosurgeon and go there, it's of no use because they don't accept our qualification, Indian qualification. The best time if someone wants to go abroad and become a neurosurgeon there is to finish their MBBS, and during their MBBS they should give USMLE, which is mainly for the US, and similar exams like PLAB for UK. And once they finish their MBBS, they should move there, join the residencies, and then climb the ladder like they do in India. But yes, the prospects are very good abroad also, and they are one of the top ranked fields abroad also, as in India also.
Absolutely, very interesting, observations, sir. Because as per this government's Ayushman Bharat scheme, also the idea is to change the skewed demand of medicine and healthcare facilities across India. So definitely, अगर आप 2 tier 3 tier cities में अगर set up करते हो तो बच्चे it will be good for your career and also for the society. So that's a very important thing. And of course, as you mentioned, all our students who join the MOOCs program, usually they prepare for the Indian next license exam or the USMLE, right from first year, because they are clear that ultimately planning has to be done right up to PG. So that's also good feedback, sir. So when we talk about the new field or
one point, sorry to interrupt you, is that those students who are serious about going abroad, personally, I felt that I should serve my own fellow Indians, so I never did that. But many of my friends went abroad. They are abroad. They are practicing physicians, surgeons there. So those who are serious about it, they should seriously give their PLAB or USMLE or Australian licensing examination along with the MBBS, because it's easy to do that, and it generally doesn't take much time. There are special books for it, and you just have to slide different format. So that should be done, because once you decide after MBBS, it gets more tiring and you lose time.
Very true, sir. Very true. It is too late then. Sir, now when you talk about the new fields or research happening in the field of neurosurgery, any new research which is happening currently?
Right. You see, you'll be surprised that there are now almost 7 to 8 subspecialties in neurosurgery. So now we are now reaching a stage wherein even doing a simple neurosurgery may not be enough for you to practice in metropolitan cities. Suppose you want to practice in. So now we have neurosurgeons who are doing only brain tumors. We have neurosurgeons who are doing only vascular surgery. So neurosurgery was one of the surgical fields which has developed remarkably in last 30 years. It was a bit late to develop, and that was because we did not have good imaging. We just had X-rays initially, and then came CT scans. But now with the advent of MRI scans and good microscopes, neurosurgery has really taken a leap forward. So there's a lot of work going on. There are multiple fields. First, I would address that. One is neuro-oncology, which is brain tumors. Second is neurotrauma, which is head injury and spine injury. Third is vascular neurosurgery. So you deal with various types of brain hemorrhages, intracranial aneurysms, arteriovenous malformations. And then there is spine surgery. You see, spine initially was more dominated by the orthopedicians, but now you have spine which is managed by orthopedicians, but also by a lot of neurosurgeons. And because neurosurgeons have a good training in microscopic surgery, they also are good in microscopic spine surgery. So that has become a separate field by itself. And then there's a new field known as functional neurosurgery. I don't know if the students have heard, wherein patients with Parkinsonism who are not able to walk properly because of the advanced disease, you put a pacemaker in the brain and they're able to walk like normal persons. So this is known as functional neurosurgery. So these are all very fascinating fields, and there are fellowships available in all these fields which one does after one finishes his neurosurgery. But not all do that, especially those who are practicing in tier 2 or tier 3 cities. For them, even a basic neurosurgery is enough. But if you are practicing in a very specialized center wherein there are multiple neurosurgeons, then you have to focus on these fields. Regarding the research, you see a lot of research. I mean, research is a part of any medical field. So same is in neurosurgery, a lot of research on basic things like trauma, brain tumors, extensive research, because brain tumors are one frontier which we are still not able to conquer as neurosurgeons, especially the malignant gliomas or malignant brain tumors. So a lot of work is going on it. And again, functional neurosurgery, spine, all fields, extensive research is going on. And these are basically to improve the surgical results and to reduce the complication rates, and also to try to diagnose a condition on an early stage.
Absolutely, sir. So a lot of interesting things happening on, and as sir mentioned, even neurosurgery is not enough. You have 7 to 8 more subspecialties. So I already see, sir, a lot of students have messaged that they are inspired and they might consider neurosurgery, but there are others who are still contemplating. So what is,
Right.
why should the young doctor should consider neurosurgery as a career, sir?
Right, right. You see, neurosurgery is very fascinating, and as we have been discussing, and as I've mentioned, this is one of the few fields which has a potential to create a sudden impact in the patient and their family members. And your intervention is actually a life-saving intervention. And I think very few fields provide that satisfaction that you have done something on a patient which has actually saved the life. So someone who is looking for that field, that, or who has a persona of that nature, that yes, he wants to intervene, he wants to be responsible. So that is one area. This is one of the reasons that you should pick up this specialty. But also, to your question of why you should, I would also say who should pick up. And this is very important, because you see, as doctors, when you are going through your process of training, especially your clinical rotations, you have to be open to all ideas. So don't fix your mind, because whenever you go through various rotations, you will be exposed to various pros and cons of each field. And those who are willing to spend hours with the patient, caring for the patient, whether it be day or night, they should be the ones who should actually try to take this field up.
Absolutely. So basically, that's a very important thing you mentioned. So students definitely keep those things in mind. So you answered this question earlier, but again, if we, because just to reiterate,
Yeah.
what are the important subjects in MBBS which needs to be focused if I want to become a neurosurgeon?
Right, right. You see, anatomy and physiology, these are the most important subjects. And you have to be really good in your anatomy, especially the part which is not really given importance during our first year curriculum of anatomy, which is the brain and the spinal cord. Because in spite of having advanced diagnostic facilities, finally it is your clinical judgment. And I generally tell my juniors that, you see, neurosurgery is like mathematics. It is always 1 + 1 is 2. It will never be 1 + 1 is 5. What I mean is that your clinical judgment, so when a patient is giving you history, when you are examining the patient, you have to localize that what area of the brain or spinal cord is affected. And you can actually localize it without an MRI scan, without a CT scan. The CT and MRI is basically to confirm your clinical diagnosis that, look, I feel this patient has a problem in the brain. So this is very important, because we do get patients, see, patient will not tell I have a problem in brain or I have a problem in spine. So we get a patient who is having difficulty in walking. Now that difficulty in walking could be due to the brain, it could be due to the cervical cord compression, it could be due to the lumbar spine compression. So it is your your anatomical knowledge which plays a very important role. So anatomy is very important. Second is physiology. You see, brain is all physiology, the cerebral perfusion, the intracranial pressure. So you should be good in your physiology. These are the two basic subjects for first year. For the second year, I would say pathology is very important, because there are almost 120 types of brain tumors. So it's a very extreme, very large group of various pathologies. So pathology, and then coming to your clinical posting, I as a neurosurgeon feel that a neurosurgeon should be good in medicine, should be good in surgery, and should also be good in pediatrics, in ophthalmology, because all these, in ENT, in radiology, because eventually your brain controls all these things. So you have to pay focus on all these specialties to help you become a comprehensive and a skilled neurosurgeon. See, neurosurgery is not just operating. Neurosurgery is operating the right lesion, the right place, and coming to a right diagnosis and right outcome. Many times we see that, unfortunately, many neurosurgeons feel that no, we have to just operate. This is the diagnosis which is there on the scan. But you see, we are not treating the scan. We are treating a human being. So unless you have these knowledge, these subjects strong, you can still be a neurosurgeon. But to be an accomplished neurosurgeon, you should pay focus on all these subjects.
Absolutely, it's a very responsible field. So students, you have to work hard. There's no substitute to working hard, for this field. So, sir, what is your message for these? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just to interrupt. Many times we see young students, once they enter the MBBS curriculum, they feel now we'll become doctors. Why to study so hard? But what I tell them is that those 10 years of your study, sincere study, and sincere study doesn't mean that you don't enjoy the college life. You can very well enjoy the college life, but when you are studying, sincere study is going to help you for the next 60 years. So because that knowledge what you gain in your medical college, you are not going to revisit that again once you become a specialist, because you become more and more focused. So you all have to be very sincere in whatever subjects you are studying during your entire MBBS curriculum. And unfortunately, we didn't have options like what you guys are having. I mean, you are sitting at your home and listening to me. I mean, we never had a neurosurgeon who could guide us. There was no internet at that time, no mobile phones at that time. So nobody could guide us. And sometimes now looking back, we feel that probably somebody would have been there to tell us or to guide us on these lines, would have been a much better thing for us.
Absolutely. In fact, that was my question, which you answered, that what is the message for the students. So now, sir, there are lots of students who have already put up questions. So I will take up questions, which students have already.
Just before the questions, to your last question about message to students, because I feel this is very important. The first thing is that you see, when you have taken up a medical profession, it's a marathon. It's not a 100-meter run. It's not a 200-meter run. It's a marathon. So don't get demotivated, because sometimes your friends who have chosen engineering or who have chosen other profession would be earning by the time you would still be studying. But don't worry. What matters is what happens after 15 years. And it's all evident for all of us to see that these last 6 months, we as medical specialty have really been putting up efforts out of the way. So that's one thing. Don't get demotivated. Don't get disheartened. It's a tough journey, and that's what it is. You become a doctor only when you are tough, because you have to face ups and downs every day. The second thing is that you see, be compassionate and genuine to your patients. Don't allow financial considerations to come into your decision making. You are too young for it, but I thought I should put it across, because by the time you become doctor, society is changing. We are having a lot of corporate hospitals. We are having a lot of corporatization coming up, and there are a lot of strong influences which would be around you, and you really need to be strong in your own convictions. That look, I am for the patient. I'll do what is best for him, and money will flow. Money will never stop if you do good to your patient. And the third and most important, which they don't teach in the medical colleges, is that develop a relationship with your patient wherein you are compassionate towards the patient and their caregivers. Don't look at him just as a patient, look at him as a caregiver, as a human being, and develop communication skills. See, I feel that 60-70% of the problems what we see in the newspapers, lot of allegations against hospitals and doctors, is lack of communication. So please develop those. Some of them have inherent communication skills, but those who don't have, please develop those communication skills. It doesn't take any effort. It just takes 5 more minutes to talk to your patient and their relatives, and it will help you a long way to become a good clinician. Yes, Chirag.
All right, yeah, I think this was very important. So, students, sir, now there are lots of questions. So let me pick up one by one. They have been patiently listening to you for last, almost 40 minutes. So thank you for that time also, sir. I know you are very busy with your schedule, but we'll quickly have,
That's right.
5-10 questions. So now, first question is from Raisha. She's made a very interesting observation. So Raisha is saying, sir, while doing surgery, does your spectacles become a problem?
Right. Yes, they do become a problem because especially when we put the mask. So if the mask is not fit properly, there's a fogging on the spectacles. But otherwise, apart from that, no. You get used to it. Your whole work profile gets used to it. So specs is not really a problem.
And sir, I have from Harsh Kumar. Harsh Kumar is saying, is it so that less people tend to choose neurology as a profession, or there are lots of cases? So is it that more people select, or I mean, basically, Harsh, what I'm trying to understand is it competitive? That's what I think. What he's trying to tell.
Right.
He's
You
asking
see,
basically, is it competitive or
right. Right. I think what he wants is it difficult to get in or why people are not choosing neurology more? You see, first of all, you have to, after you do your MBBS, you have to do your, like for a neurosurgeon, you have to do your master's in surgery, which is for 3 years. And then you have to do your MCH in neurosurgery. So it's a long trajectory. It almost takes, I would say, around 12 to 13 years to till you actually become a neurologist. So that is one thing. Some people are not able to accept that, and there are a lot of social reasons, logistics. They have to start earning early, so that is one reason. Second, unfortunately, till last 2 3 years, very few institutes were offering these courses. Till 2018, if I remember, there were only 60 institutes in the country which had neurosurgery and neurology courses. And every year we would have only 200 neurosurgeons who, I mean, only 200 candidates who would actually qualify to become a neurosurgeon. So the pyramid is very steep and less seats, less institutes. So definitely the competition is high. But things have opened up since last 2 3 years. The number of seats have increased because government has realized that you need more specialists. So it's not so difficult. Uh, I mean, of course, it's not easy, but it's not so difficult that if you don't try, you won't get it. It's possible. And third is, of course, a lot of people are not interested in having such a tough lifestyle, and that's fair enough. I mean, you see, you have to decide what is good for you. I feel that this is good for me. My family feels that I am happy doing this. That's fine. But there is someone. My wife is a radiologist. She didn't want to work like me, so she just works 4 hours in a day, and she's happy with that. So you should choose and you should think what is good for you, and don't get influenced by what your friend or what your parents are saying. And this is very important. At some stage you should sit down yourself and think about it, that what type of life you want. You want a relaxed and a cool life, become a radiologist. You want a challenging and always pumping life, then become a neurosurgeon.
all right, sir? So next question is from Aditi. She's asking, how do you manage this, 6 hours long continuous surgery? Don't you get tired yourself?
Haha. You see, that's a part of training, and that's why you take 12 years to become a neurosurgeon. And so I still remember in our initial days of neurosurgery, when we were first year residents, we would stand on the microscope, and our surgeon professor would be operating, and sometimes he would just fall asleep on the microscope, and the professor, they would all have gone through the same phase. They would wake you up. They will be kind enough, okay, go take a break, have a tea, and come back. But it's all training. And by the time you are yourself responsible for a particular case, you see, it's all mindset. Because you have that responsibility, you forget that you are getting tired. In fact, you forget that you have stood there for 6 hours at one place because you're all focused on that. So I tell my juniors that a surgery is like a meditation. Once you are involved in the surgery, time just flies. You don't even know that you have stood there for 4 hours or 6 hours. And again, it all comes with your mindset. So don't take it as a burden that, oh, it's a long surgery today, I will be tired. No, it's your mindset. Take it as a challenge. Yes, it's a long surgery and I'm ready for it. And your training will help you and your mindset will help you. And the fact that you become responsible for your patient will actually help you. But yes, once the surgery is over, then you go on the couch and lie down for half an hour, have a tea, and then go back to the OPD.
So, sir, next question. I think it's by Saistuti and Dimple Parmar. They are asking both of them that what exactly is the difference between a neurology and a neurosurgery, and how does the correlation work? Neurology and neurosurgery. Yeah.
You see, any field, any medical field, you don't operate everyone, right? And you don't give medicines to everyone. So any medical field has a medical part and a surgical part. So for example, you have a cardiologist and a cardiothoracic surgeon. A cardiologist would put a stent, would do an echocardiogram, would do a TMT, whereas a cardiac surgeon will do a bypass surgery. So same holds true for neurology and neurosurgery. Neurology is a medical field. It's a non-surgical field. So you do your MBBS, then you do your MD. MD is Doctor of Medicine. And then you do DM, which is Doctorate of Medicine. You don't operate. A neurologist never operates. So neurologist is also called as neurophysician. A neurosurgeon is a surgeon. He will treat those conditions which can be treated surgically. So he does his MBBS and then he does his general surgery, MS in general surgery, and then he does his MCH, which is Magister Chirurgery in neurosurgery. So the basic field is neurosciences, and you have two parts: neurologist and a neurosurgeon. One operates, one doesn't operate. But one is also important, like treating epilepsy, treating multiple sclerosis. There are so many illnesses. And I would say that neurosurgeon actually deals with maybe around 20-30% of neurological illnesses. A neurologist deals with around 60% of the neurological illnesses. I hope that is clear.
Students, so we are more than 100-150 students right now, so please, it's not that I am ignoring any question, it is just that I'm trying to combine the question for sir to answer. Okay, so now sir, question is by Huda Maqsood, and there are a couple of students, I will just name them quickly: Lalit Kumar and Omkar. So they are asking, sir, is neurosurgery the only best field? What do you feel about orthopedics and neurosurgery? So basically, they're just wanting to know, which is the best field.
You see, no field is best. All fields are best. Okay, please keep that in mind. I don't consider myself to be a superior person than a cardiac surgeon or than a neurophysician or than a cardiologist or a radiologist. No, everyone has their own place, and you as a neurosurgeon have to work as a team. So all these are good fields. So if you're talking specifically about various surgical specialties, then there is neurosurgery, cardiac surgery, pediatric surgery, urology, hepatobiliary and transplant surgery, surgical oncology. So they all have their importances. And don't choose a field if you feel that, oh, this is the best field or this is a very charismatic field, I will choose that. No, choose a field which you feel suits your personality, which you feel is going to be similar to what you aspire 15 years, 20 years down the line.
This is very important. That's the reason why. I'm sorry, sir. Sir, just to add, that is the reason I asked you, because there is an obvious thing that students feel that I will do whatever is best, rather than thinking what is good for them. They want to run behind whoever says isme zyada income hai, those kind of things.
You see, students, I'll tell you my example. I learned my first craniotomy from my nurse, from my operating theater nurse. And why I'm telling you this is that don't think I am the best. No, all are good. All are good. Never bring ego into your profession. Never bring ego into your mindset. And you see, she was the best in her field. So she was just an operating theater nurse, but she was doing neurosurgical. She was assisting neurosurgeons for the last 35 years, and she became best in her field. So whatever field you choose, you can be the best in that, and people will recognize you for that. So choose a field which you feel that yes, 25 years, 30 years down the line, I'll be happy doing that field. And you can be best in any field. Even you must have come across so many plain MBBS doctors who are very good in diagnosis. Of course, they have their own limitation of diagnosis, but for simple conditions like typhoid or flu, they're very good. So whatever you do the best. All fields are good. Choose your field as per your own personality, wish, and of course your own desire to the way you want to be or be known as a specialist. Which specialist?
All right. So that's what I was just saying to students, that the best way to learn is clinical rotations. So that's where
Yes.
you will actually realize all the fields and then you can take a decision.
Yes.
All right, sir. Now next combined questions are there from Garima Duha and Sonali Kumari. Garima is saying, sir, there might be some failed operation. How do you overcome such situation mentally? And Sonali is
Yes.
saying, how to handle frustration, anxiety, even in my studies and exams. So in life, how do you manage disappointment?
Unfortunately, neurosurgery is one field wherein sometimes even if you do everything right, the result may not be the same, and it sometimes devastates you. I have stuck to a principle on two principles. One is that you do your best, and leave it to God. And I'll tell you, if you are studying, if you are preparing for your exam, you do your best. Whatever 24 hours you have, you want to work, study for 12 hours. Those 12 hours give your 100%. 16 hours give your 100%. After that, you leave it to God. And believe me, it brings lot of peace. It brings lot of peace because you are not God, you are a human being. And as a medical specialist, as a neurosurgeon, we do come across wherein young patients, we are not able to save them. It devastates us. So that is one principle which has helped me overcome these frustrations and these devastations. And second thing is that if something you feel has gone wrong because of your intervention, you see, we are all humans. Sometimes we do make some errors, and neurosurgery doesn't, you don't work alone, you work as a team. You need to have a good ICU, you need to have a good neuro nurse, you need to have good assistants, and you are the captain of the ship. So even if someone else makes error, you are responsible for it. And you see, it does happen. Most of these are very minor errors and we are able to correct it, but we may need to make sure that we don't repeat the same errors again. And coming to the second question about how you handle anxiety about your examination or studies, don't think that this, what you are studying for the exam, is very tough. Believe me, there'll be tougher situations as you grow old. I mean, as you join this profession. So this is testing you. This is a part of your test that yes, you are capable of becoming a doctor. You are one of those 20 lakhs or 15 lakh students who have that ability, who has the energy to put in the efforts. So don't, it does frustrate you. Even nowadays, sometimes when we operate and the results are suboptimal, we do get upset, but we try to overcome it. We try to think, yes, I did my best, but the result was not the same. And that's what is about medicine. You still don't know 100% medicine. You still don't know why the results are not the same for all the patients, but you have to give your best. That is what will give you peace and solace, whatever the result is.
Absolutely, sir. I understand we are, having less time now. So just last one question, which is from Nitanshu and Aniket. Both are asking, what about money? Will a neurosurgeon earn like अच्छा पैसा रहेगा? They're asking, what about money part?
पैसा बहुत रहेगा, चिंता मत करो, बट पैसे का, अभी आप बहुत छोटे हो, आप अभी से पैसा सोचोगे तो आपको फिर डॉक्टर नहीं बनना चाहिए, फिर आपको एंटरप्रेन्योर बनना चाहिए, आपको बिजनेस में जाना चाहिए, इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट बनना चाहिए, क्योंकि वहां पे और भी पैसा है. So what I mean to say is, look, you are becoming a doctor, you are not becoming a financial person. Of course, there is good money in neurosurgery, but it comes at a cost. And believe me, even if you have money, you may not have the time to enjoy that money. So don't keep money as your motivation to become a neurosurgeon, or for that matter, any other specialty. Your motivation should always be patient safety, patient care. Money flows. Money flows if you are genuinely concerned about your own patients. So at this stage in your career and in your life, you should not think about that this profession gets more money, so I'll take this profession.
Absolutely, that's a very important message for all of you students. So just discover your passion and give your 100%. I think things will work out. So thank you
Things will
very
work.
much,
They
sir,
always-
for this
Yeah.
session. Yeah, so
Right.
it was really great to have you, and we've almost taken 1 hour of your time. So appreciate
That's all.
you being part of this session on behalf of the students and the Moksha Academy. We all want to thank you.
Yeah.
People are already thanking
And
you for this
just
session.
to- No, I feel that I'm honored to address students at such a young stage of their career, because I feel that these experiences which we go across in our profession, if someone shares at the early part of their career, it makes a difference. So I'm happy. And to those students who could not get their questions addressed, please mail them to Chirag, and they would mail me all the questions, and I'll try to answer them and send to your chairpersons.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Sonali says it was a really motivating session. Aniket is thanking you. Sandhya is thanking. Everybody is, thanking. So thank you, students. Thank you, sir, to be part of this session. A really interesting session. Dimple is quoting you. So thank you, sir, and appreciate all of you to be part of this session. I'll end this session now. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. I'll end this session.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.